Keir Starmer, as we said, was in the Middle East yesterday. He was first in UAE, then he went to Saudi Arabia, then he went to Cyprus, where he was sort of glad-handing with all the people in the armed forces there. Some people were suggesting yesterday he's gone there, hasn't he, to sort of sell off Cyprus and sell off the bases. But apparently he's coming home. He's going to be back later on today in order to appear at Prime Minister's questions. Tom Slater is here from Spiked Online. Tom, it's not been a great week, has it, for old Sir Keir? He seemed... I mean, I wrote a piece this week for the Telegraph saying he always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, he wasn't in Paris for Notre Dame's, you know, unveiling of the brand new cathedral and how brilliant it looked. He missed Donald Trump. You know, he missed you know, Emmanuel Macron, and instead he was off with the UAE, you know, sort of, you know, dictators, if you like, and Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia. And then suddenly, you know, he's gone to Cyprus. He's back. You know, it's kind of like, what are you doing? What on earth are you doing? I think we've got Starmer addressing the troops in Cyprus, have we? Let's have a look.
There's no higher service than the service that you give to our country. I talk about service in politics, but the service you give firsthand to your country to make us safe as a country and our allies safe in a really volatile time at the moment in the world. That is the highest form of service. I am grateful. The country is grateful. I hope that over the Christmas period you do get a little bit of time just to reflect and relax at the end of what has been a really challenging year. But from me, it's a thank you on behalf of the whole country. Thank you so much for what you do. We really appreciate it. We're proud. Keep on making us proud. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's an absolute load of old cobblers. You know, let's hope we get some time off over Christmas. What, you while the Middle East is on fire? Yeah. Look, I'm sorry we can't help you out in Syria, even though the mad Muslims have taken over and they're about to start chopping people's heads off. Just take a couple of days, you know, go and see your family, relax. I mean, how disingenuous is that? He's cut the defence budget, right? He's firing people right, left and centre from all sorts of military jobs. He doesn't really like the military because he's a Corbynista, left-wing Marxist. And nothing he says gives anybody any kind of satisfaction at all that he wants to be on their side.
Well, he kind of has that feeling of like the kind of assistant manager giving a pep talk before Christmas. He just has no sort of authority, does he? He's terrible at things like this. And with these...
Yeah, who's he speaking for? We're very grateful to you. For what? Exactly. You know, we've got a very high level of terror alert going on in Britain. You know, we don't see soldiers walking up and down the streets, which we might want to see. What's he thanking them for?
I mean, it's one of those things where these are the sorts of things politicians always do, don't they? But he's got a way of making it look really difficult. Yeah. Like, he's really making this job look really hard. And it's one, even with these international trips that he's been going on and the amount of time he's been spending on aeroplanes, as you say, usually when politicians do that, it kind of enhances their standing, it allows them to pose as being statesmanlike. In his case, it seems to have the opposite effect. He's been, you know, taken hither and yon, and never in the right place.
The good thing that he didn't do, which is what some of them do, and he's done it in the past, because we've seen him in Ukraine, is put on the old camouflage jacket.
Yes.
You know, and
we haven't spared that so far.
You know, so far he's done it in a white shirt, which is probably wise. But there is no doubt that people like him and others before him just look really, really awkward in a setting where, you know, because the one thing you know about people in the armed forces is they will actually fight until they die. They will fight for you. They will protect you no matter... They don't even know who you are, they don't know who I am, but they will fight on your behalf and they'll stand in front of you and they'll kill people and take a bullet for you. You know, Keir Starmer could not be further away from that.
No, absolutely not. And he looks uncomfortable in that kind of setting, but he looks uncomfortable in pretty much any setting.
Every setting. You know? Well, I said, you know, he looks about as uncomfortable on the international stage. There was a picture of him standing by this big mosque in Abu Dhabi where he's kind of like that. And you go, oh, why are you standing like that? No, look good. I mean, he looks exactly like he looked when he was lighting the Christmas tree in Downing Street. Just awkward. You
feel like it would make a lot... It's like he's kind of become Prime Minister by like a series of hilarious misunderstandings. And he's just trying to figure it out. You know? If someone
he's like Mr. Bean, actually. I mean, we haven't called him that before, but he's kind of like Mr. Bean.
Just trying to get his way through it, you know.
Unbelievable. Let's talk about Angela Rayner, who's the other woman who seems to have found her way to the top of the tree for no decent reason, because it turns out that there's going to be a load more strikes. Yep. And she, obviously being the representative of the left wing of the party, will presumably be rolled out to try and stop all these strikes from happening. But this is from Rachel Reeves's latest missive, which is that she's going to offer them all 2.8% in the next round of budget scenarios. And of course, we could have told her this would happen. Once you give them 15%, once you give them 22%, you can't turn around the next year and go, here's 2.8%. They're just going to go get lost.
And they've really sort of handled the politics of this really badly, I think. I don't think they clearly haven't bought enough goodwill from the unions themselves, but also, given that the mood music in terms of the budget, in terms of all the announcements, has been everyone in the country is going to have to get ready for some belt tightening. Yeah. This is just going to become a running sore for them.
Exactly right. And Angela Rayner's also in trouble over the fact that she's trying to change the planning laws to stop councils preventing loft conversions and extra stories being added to family homes. Their policy on homes seems to be all over the place. You know, she said on Sunday when they rolled her out that at the same time as there being loads and loads and loads of homes and houses in Britain, they have to build more because there's not enough of them. And everyone's going, well, both of those statements can't quite be right.
No, absolutely, and it's the sort of thing where some of the noises they're making on planning and building are good. It's nice to see them say things like it is ridiculous that you've got, you know, newt habitats holding back actual really necessary building and infrastructure and so on.
Yeah.
But given that confusion that you're talking about, Mike, you just think, given what a difficult issue this is to crack in terms of getting this kind of reform through so that you can actually have the building that we need, have they really got the stomach for it, and have they really got the the clarity to do it? That definitely.
Well, you see, I've had a big problem with the whole issue of house building, because everywhere I go, and I've been saying this for months now, they're building houses, and they're building houses by quite a large number in places like Sussex, in Kent, in places like Hampshire, you know, all the sort of home counties. They're building like there's no tomorrow. Now, whether that's not building quickly enough, I don't know, but there's no shortage of homes being built. It just seems to me that they're not building the houses that people can afford to buy.
I'm sure that's part of it, and also, I guess it's that thing where, because we're so behind in the kind of number of houses that we need to build in order to make sure that everyone is properly accounted for, it's going to need to ramp up even further, you know. And it's good that they have set these ambitious targets. This 1.5 million is a nice stretch target for them to have. But does anyone really believe they're going to be able to do it?
Nobody does.
It's also,
nobody does.
You can't. Also, there's the question of, you know, doing the kind of planning reform. That's really difficult in and of itself.
Yeah.
You hope they'll succeed. But also, that's not necessarily magically going to create that amount.
And there's not enough people to do the work that they want to do. I was listening to Ian Collins yesterday, and he was saying that, you know, he talks to people all the time down in sort of Sevenoaks where he lives, and whether people are having houses built or just sort of replenished or having work done. Yeah. All of them are saying, you know, well, we had to sort of postpone the work for a couple of months because there weren't enough bricklayers to come and do the bricklaying. And so we don't have enough actual people who are skilled enough in the work that needs to be done in terms of building to do it.
No, absolutely. And it's one of those things where they've set themselves a bit of a tricky task in relation to this and many other things, where you've had a problem which is built up over decades, and yet you're trying to measurably change that over the course of months, and that's was always going to be a tall order for them. The question is, you've got to set out a credible plan and say this might take some time, we've got to train people, we've got to bring workers in, we've got to do whatever it might be. But we're heading in the right direction. But I think they kind of have set expectations very high, which is good on some of these fronts, but again, I don't think anyone really trusts them to follow through.
But that is the problem. I mean, everything they're talking about has a kind of a shelf life of something like 4 years. So, you know, you'll see the benefit of it in 2028. Well, most people can't wait until 2028 to feel the benefit of anything. They'd like to see the benefit of it now. And whether that might be unrealistic or not isn't the point. You know, if the government is going to change the way that they're doing things, let's see some change now. Why are we waiting 4 years for it?
And people will want to see that as well. I think it also reminds you of the kind of hubris of this lot, because a lot of these policies will make a bit more sense if you were guaranteed an extra term. They often talk about 10 years of national renewal. But as we've been seeing recently, that is hardly a firm. Yeah.
Also, I mean, we live in a different.
Still be there.
But also, we live in a different world now. You know, we live in a world of instantaneous gratification. You know, people used to talk about delayed gratification back in the sort of 90s and the early part of the new century. You know, you can put your bag in there, and when it comes out the other end, you're going to be a lot richer. People aren't interested in that now. They're interested in going on Twitter and going on TikTok and seeing something happening before their very eyes and something improving before their very eyes. They're not interested in something 5 years later.
And also, I think people were just sort of slightly weary of bad economic news and want good things to happen. I mean, if you think about, you have the financial crisis, you have the kind of slow grinding recovery from that, and then COVID, Ukraine, all the rest of it.
Right.
The kind of sense of bear with us, we're all in it together.
Yeah.
It might be a bit rough for a few years, but things are going to go on the uptick.
Right.
I think people are not willing to kind of put up with
and
that.
also most people that I know, and the people that call into this show and that talk to me, say, you know, it's not our fault that COVID was a thing. And it's also not our fault that people were paid loads and loads of money not to go to work. You know, that was never something that was voted on, and everybody's now kind of accepted it as if it had to be done. Well, it didn't have to be done, actually. You could have done it a different way, couldn't you?
No, absolutely. And Labour's fingerprints are all over this. Yes, they weren't in government for all of those.
Yeah, but they wanted
policies.
it to go longer.
Absolutely.
People to be, you know, they wanted schools to be closed down for a longer period of time. They wanted people to be told to not to come back to work, not to go on trains. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, completely. And they can't. It always depresses me that the whole kind of COVID and lockdown question has just been kind of disappeared from our debate about politics, where the economy is.
Yeah.
You understand why the politicians want to ignore it, but I think the onus is on people in the media and.
Well, I mean, the COVID inquiry is going on even as we speak. It's going to be the most expensive inquiry in the history of inquiries, and all that we know so far is that, you know, they made a lot of decisions which weren't based on anything other than their own kind of instincts.
No, it's sort of telling us what we
should we do
knew.
now? Oh, I don't know. What do you think? Oh, I don't know. Maybe we should shut everything down. OK, then.